So in this video I'm going to be explaining why I think Manchester United have been targeting Ekitike, Gyokeres and even Liam Delap this summer, as whilst initially I was slightly confused due to the major difference in skill set between Ekitike and Gyokeres in particular. After I looked at this particular statistical graph, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and explain why this specific attribute seems to be what Amorim is prioritising in what he wants from his centre forward, I think you'll have a clearer idea of the style of striker that Amorim wants and why Ekitike and Gyokeres are the two primary targets. But also, if Ekitike and Gyokeres aren't attainable this summer, I actually think that Matheus Cunha could be a very good stylistic alternative, especially if United are also bringing in an inside forward like Bryan Mbeumo for the right interior forward position, with Marseille's Gyokeres being someone who would cost maybe less than half of what Ekitike would cost once you factor in wage package as well, but actually could turn out to be a better stylistic fit than Ekitike in the front three alongside Mbeumo and Cunha. However, whilst I understand why Amorim is prioritising this specific attribute, I think there are far better attributes that he should be prioritising in the centre forward. And I'm going to show you this particular graph to make a point that I think Matteo Retegui could actually turn out to be a better signing than either Gyokeres or Ekitike, but he would have to be used in the right role with the optimal stylistic balance around him in the front three. So why Gyokeres and Ekitike? Why Cunha at centre forward and Gyokeres to his left? And what exactly makes Retegui so good? Well, I'm going to be answering all of those questions in just a minute, but before I do, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, and they've also got the new season Manchester United shirts for the upcoming season, as well as retro shirts like this Manchester United 2006-2007 white away shirt with Ronaldo number 7 on the back, which they did actually send me alongside this Zinedine Zidane Juventus shirt from the 1990s. If you use code ATLANTIS at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below. So why Gyokeres and Ekitike? Well, looking at this graph of strikers from the top 7 European leagues this season, with non-penalty XG per 90 plotted against ball carrying frequency, you can clearly see that Ekitike and Gyokeres stand out as outliers, with extremely high non-penalty XG rates, Ekitike having the third highest out of anyone in Europe's top 5 leagues this season, but also and specifically for their ball carrying frequency as well, which is no surprise from the eye test, alongside what we see when we look at both players' individual FBref reports. Now, what you can also see is that Liam Delap also ranks incredibly highly for his ball carrying frequency, and once you also factor in that his non-penalty XG is likely to be negatively skewed compared to the other two due to playing for Ipswich in the Premier League, you would assume that simply by moving to Manchester United, who hopefully would at least be a top 7, top 6 side next season, would hopefully lead to a significant increase in his non-penalty XG, which would then shift him up as the closest attainable player to Ekitike and Gyokeres, with ball carrying being the priority attribute. And so it makes sense why United went for Delap as an alternative to Gyokeres, and why they are also targeting Ekitike as a Gyokeres alternative, despite him likely costing just as much. But this raises a question: why exactly is Ruben Amorim prioritising ball carrying ability in his centre forward? Well, it's down to his build-up phase. See, unlike coaches like Roberto De Zerbi or Sebastian Hoeneß, who prioritise and demand intentionally playing through the centre of the press during the build-up phase, Amorim seems to not only be less intentional with this, but at times he seems actively willing to build out through wider areas, specifically looking to draw the opposition high in the press, dragging the fullbacks high and narrow with the deeper movement of the interior forwards, before then looking to utilise a direct long pass into the channels, where from the centre forward can either link play with the interior forwards or wing backs looking to spin their pressing players and get goal side in order to receive a layoff, or the centre forward could carry the ball down the channel, progressing the attack quickly through the middle third and then looking to isolate a centre back in a 1v1 in the final third in and around the box. Now, this build-up strategy can be effective, but I don't think it should be your primary build-up strategy, as by intentionally playing wide you are cutting down your shorter passing options, making it easier for the opposition to compress their defensive shape over to one side, reducing the space your central players have to receive the ball in, and whilst these long passes into the centre forward can work to open up the opposition, leading to a quick transition in artificial counter-attack and potentially a high value chance at the end, the involvement of a low probability long pass upfield does make the consistent effectiveness of this strategy throughout a match and even a season a lot lower, compared with a strategy that relied upon higher probability shorter passing sequences through the centre. But also, my other issue with Amorim's prioritisation of ball carrying ability in his centre forward is that really and truly is only that effective against high pressure in an artificial counter-attack or after a turnover resulting in a traditional counter-attack, where the space is there to exploit in behind and wide of the centre backs. If opposition sides decide to adapt their pressing strategy in order to nullify the effectiveness of Ekitike or Gyokeres' ball-carrying ability on the transition by not engaging United as high in their build-up phase and preferring to sit off deeper in the middle third, allowing United easy access out of their defensive third, but instead working to close off the space around their centre-backs, then Ekitike and Gyokeres' ball-carrying ability doesn't just become less effective, but you may struggle to rely on it for ball progression at all. If Ruben Amorim insists on having a high-frequency ball carrier as a centre-forward, specifically for that pattern of play in the build-up phase, I think a better solution may be to just use Matheus Cunha there. But before I explain why I think Cunha has a skill set to play as a centre-forward, being used in a hybrid role between an advanced target man in the build-up phase, before evolving into more of a trequartista or false 9 as United get higher up the pitch, let me show you some cheaper moneyball stylistic alternatives to Ekitike and Gyokeres, who certainly aren't on their level in terms of current ability, but if you can get them at 26 or under for a decent fee, it could work out in the mid to long term, but also save you money for other signings in the short term. So if we look at the same graph, ball carrying frequency is the dependent variable on the y-axis, and non-penalty XG per 90 is the independent variable on the x-axis. If we factor out Vinicius, Mamouche and Ekitike as outliers, Kylian Mbappe is the one leading the pack. You can maybe also include Boniface, but because his sample size is only just over 1,000 minutes, I think you'd probably have to assume that his data is positively skewed. But behind Mbappe we see Nicolas Jackson, Moise Kean, and Strasbourg's Emmanuel Omega in the high non-penalty XG group, with Isaac Nketiah and Victor Roque slightly higher for their ball carrying frequency but lower for non-penalty XG, whilst Villarreal's Tiano Barry sits over their shoulder with a higher ball carrying frequency but a lower non-penalty XG. I'll analyse Kean, Omega and Barry in a separate video, so subscribe to the channel for that, and I'll also upload some more striker plot graphs onto my Patreon, so if you do want to see some of those, you can sign up and get a 7-day free trial. I'll leave that linked in the eye above, description, comment section and on the end screen after the video. But this now brings me on to Matheus Cunha being used as the centre forward with Matteo Retegui to his left in the front three, which may sound strange as surely they are in each other's best position. Well, in terms of starting position, yes, but as you'll see in just a minute, using Cunha centrally and Retegui slightly wider can actually provide the front three with greater balance alongside Mbeumo. Cunha as his centre forward is not going to be as good as Gyokeres at receiving direct long balls from deep and linking play during the build-up phase, nor would he be as dangerous when running in behind the centre-backs during a quick transition in order to get into and then finish from a 1v1 or a wider position inside of the box. However, Cunha's goal scoring and ability to link play in the middle third, whilst not as good as Gyokeres', I think is good enough at the moment to play that role fairly competently, certainly with some development over the next 6 to 12 months. Especially if Amorim allows a centre forward to drop deep in the build-up phase, which will now allow Cunha to receive the ball to feet on the edge of the defensive third rather than to his head or chest on the halfway line. And like Xerxes with his back to goal, Cunha can link play with the runners behind, but also create space higher up for the two interior forwards, playing more as wide forwards than playmakers to now break into with diagonal runs from the outside. In a video I'm currently working on, I talk about wide attackers like Leao and Barnes being used as inside forwards from the left side, with Mbeumo being used in the same role from the right. But I also think centre forwards like Matteo Retegui or Amin Gouiri could also be used there, and price-wise may be better options. I have got a video out on Gouiri alongside Cunha and Mbeumo, so you can check that out in the eye above if you are interested, but Retegui would also offer something completely different to the other three. This season, Retegui has been showing elite-level poacher-like ability inside of the box, ranking amongst the top strikers in Europe's top 7 leagues for his goal-scoring output with his non-penalty XG and goal rates rivaling Lewandowski's and Gyokeres. Whilst Retegui does lack the creativity or the ball progression of a Gyokeres or a Ferran Torres, his goal threat is exceptional, producing similar output to Gyokeres whilst also doing it in a higher quality league. But despite Retegui being what you'd stylistically categorise as a poacher, I think playing him wide in the front three in the build-up phase suits his agility and speed, being able to drop towards the ball, dragging the fullback high, before spinning into the space in the channel, which then opens up the space behind the opposition's midfield line press for Cunha at centre forward to drop into, and from here both Retegui and Mbeumo either side of Cunha can now look to make diagonal runs off the back of their fullbacks into the space that Cunha but also Xerxes could create, via their deeper movement dragging one of the centre backs high, enabling both of the interior forwards to provide the movement in behind the back line, essentially as split strikers on the transition, looking to break from wide into high value central areas, unlike Gyokeres who does the opposite, occupying central areas before spinning into the space out wide. Retegui's movement would enable fluid rotations, offering tactical flexibility as a wide forward in the middle third, before then taking up his usual central positions in the final third and inside the box, wherefrom his short passing into play in tight central areas is actually very efficient, allowing United to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch, with Matheus Cunha then able to roam into his usual areas, essentially playing as he would usually from the left side of a front three, with Retegui now becoming the centre forward. And so the reason for starting Cunha centrally in the front three is because Mbeumo needs someone who's going to make movements deep towards the ball in order to open up the space centrally in the back line, rather than closing it off with movements in behind, as you would get with either Gyokeres or Osimhen, with Retegui's speed and movement in a quick transition in attack, making him well suited to playing in this wider role until possession reaches the final third. And I would also argue that Retegui is more effective against deeper defensive blocks than either Gyokeres or Ekitike due to his offensive aerial ability, which can be seen when we plot headed goals scored against non-penalty XG, with Gyokeres not scoring any headed goals all the way over on the left side, whilst despite not having a massive stature, Retegui has actually scored more headed goals than either Sorloth, Isaac or Lewandowski, and matching Kane per 90. And from the eye test you can also see how good he is in the air. His movement in behind the back line from the middle third mirrors Jamie Vardy's, thriving in transition, but like a prime Jamie Vardy, he's also a striker with exceptional poacher instincts inside a crowded penalty box as well. Though his Serie A adaptation was slow, his pre-Atalanta stats in Argentina confirm his goal-scoring pedigree, and now with his skill set refined, he's among the world's best strikers, certainly statistically anyway from a goal-scoring point of view, with his output this season on the same level as the likes of Lewandowski and Gyokeres, and I think a forward with a high non-penalty XG and a sustainable positive XG conversion rate balances out the risk with the two massive XG overperformers from last season, Cunha and Mbeumo in the front three, giving Amorim a front line that even with Xerxes coming in for one of Cunha or Retegui as a centre forward in that false nine role, provides not just stylistic balance, but also high quality against both high lines in the transition and inside of the box against deeper defensive shapes. So let me know what you think of Retegui and Cunha in these roles that I've suggested, and if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfever.co. You can use code ATLANTIS at checkout for a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below. And if you want to see any of those plot graphs or read any of my articles, you can get a 7-day free trial on my Patreon, as well as access to my Instagram discussion group chat, so I'll leave my Patreon linked on the end screen now as well.